Hello everyone. Here is your introduction to Competitive GSC. Competitive GSC is the metagame for the second generation of Pokemon. Pokemon Gold, Pokemon Silver, and Pokemon Crystal. That's where the acronym GSC comes in. This will be your introduction to the generation's mechanics and where you can find resources for this great generation. Yes, great. While Competitive GSC doesn't exactly have the best reputation, its reputation is largely unearned. Competitive GSC is fun, rewarding, and competitive. It's not for everyone, but I recommend you give it at least a shot. It might be for you and you don't know it. For this video, I am talking about Smogon's GSC rules. Smogon also has the best and most active GSC scene, as well as resources for the tier. There are other websites you can find tournaments on though, like Pokemon Perfect. If you want to play games in GSC, you want to head over to Pokemon Showdown. Smogon's version of GSC does have a few clauses to keep in mind. The freeze clause means that you can't freeze more than one of the opposing Pokemon. This was implemented because GSC freeze is very dangerous, and I'll get back to that. Sleep clause is the same. You can only put one of the opposing Pokemon to sleep. Species clause means you can't use two of the same species of Pokemon on your team. Evasion clause prevents the use of moves like Double Team and Minimize. And one hit KO clause prevents the use of moves like Horn Drill and Fissure. There is also a timer clause. If your timer runs out, you lose the game. There are two clauses attached to the two trapping moves. Mean Look and Spiderweb. The Sleep Trap clause prevents you from using Spiderweb or Mean Look on the same set as a sleep-inducing move, and the Trap Pass clause prevents you from using Mean Look or Spiderweb on the same set as Baton Pass. That last one is only implemented in the past year, and it doesn't apply to metagames below UUBL. Some metagames have their own clauses. GSC UU recently banned the use of Agility and Baton Pass on the same set. With all that out of the way, let's go into the various mechanic differences present in GSC. The most important difference between GSC and modern generations is how effort values work. In Gen 3 and beyond, you can boost the Pokemon stats up by boosting their effort values in said stat. The effort value limit for each base stat is 252, which is the same as it is in GSC. However, in ADV and beyond, you only have 508 EV points overall. You can only max out 2 base stats, and then add a minuscule 4 points to another base stat. In GSC, there is no cap to this. You can max out every one of a Pokemon's stats. You can run maximum HP, attack, defense, special attack, special defense, and speed. There is no tinkering with EVs in this generation. This has a huge impact on the game, particularly in the bulk department. Every Pokemon can max out their HP, defense, and special defense without drawback. This really switches up the game. Mixed attackers are more potent in GSC, since they can run maximum attack and special attack and retain maximum speed. Everything is naturally bulkier in GSC, since everything can use maximum bulk. All Pokemon can max out their speed too, so there isn't any speed creeping. GSC also lacks natures, removing another way a Pokemon can boost its base stats. You might have noticed that GSC Blissey has DVs and ADV Blissey has IVs. DVs are basically GSC's version of IVs. Only major difference is that they range from 0 to 15, as opposed to 0 to 31. A Pokemon's DVs don't just determine stats though. They also determine shininess, gender, hidden power type, and in the case of Unknown, its letter. The hidden power type is what I really want to focus on here, because hidden power is very prominent in Gen 2. If a Pokemon wants to use hidden power, then it must lower its HP, attack, or defense DVs, depending on the hidden power type. The only hidden power type that you don't have to lower anything for is hidden power dark. Hidden power types, like bug and ice, only need a small DV drop, but ones like grass and fire are a substantial drop. On Pokemon Showdown, putting in a hidden power type automatically gives you the right DVs for it, so don't worry about not knowing them. Team building is, overall, a bit simpler in GSC, because you don't need to worry about EVs, abilities, and natures. You basically just need to worry about a Pokemon's moveset. You rarely have to worry about items, because 95% of the time, you are using leftovers. Leftovers is by far the best item in competitive GSC. The passive recovery they provide is extraordinarily useful in such a bulky generation. Leftovers are just needed to reliably handle the dangerous offensive Pokemon in every GSC metagame. To paint a picture of how good GSC leftovers are, an OU without them would likely be a boom offense infested shitshow, with people using cheese items like Berserk Gene and Quick Claw. The only Pokemon who don't use leftovers are Thief users, who steal leftovers anyway, Pokemon with Miracle Berry, or Pokemon that need their item to function, like Thick Club Marowak. There are a few exceptions too, like various Mintberry users in ZU, and Charcoal Moltres in OU. Leftovers are also extremely common because, realistically, there isn't any competition for the item slot. No item comes close to the effectiveness of leftovers. The only items that boost power are the type boosting items, like Mystic Water and Black Glasses. The boost these items provide is pretty small though, and not using leftovers is really bad. Other items, like Berserk Gene, Quick Claw, and Bright Powder are just cheese nonsense. GSC doesn't have many items in general. There's no Life Orb, no Choice Band, no Choice Specs, no Z moves, no Choice Scarf, etc. Another important aspect that is absent from GSC is abilities. There are no abilities to worry about. You can Earthquake a Gengar just fine, because Levitate isn't a thing. Dugtrio can't trap you in with Arena Trap, Tyranitar doesn't set up Sandstorm with Sandstream, and Magneton can't trap Skarmory with Magnapole. Because this is pre-Generation 4, the physical special split hasn't happened yet. This means that all moves of an attacking type, like say, Fire, are special. Every normal, fighting, flying, ground, bug, rock, ghost, steel, and poison move is physical. And every fire, water, grass, ice, electric, psychic, dragon, and dark move is special. Because this is pre-Gen 6, steel resists dark and ghost, and fairy types aren't a thing. Granbull and Clefable are normal types. Critical hits in Gen 2 deal 2 times the normal damage. The base chance to land a critical hit is 6.64%. This can be boosted if you feel like using a move like Focus Energy. Flail, Future Sight, and Reversal are all incapable of landing a crit. Sleep, Poison, Freeze, and Burn all have differences in GSC. Let's start from the top. Sleep in Gen 2 lasts from 1 to 6 turns. Unlike in Gen 1, you don't have to spend a turn waking up. Poison works a bit differently. Poison damage doesn't happen at the end of the turn. Instead, it damages a Pokemon right after it moves. If, say, a Zapdos moves first and uses Thunderbolt, it gets damaged by Poison right after Thunderbolt has been used. This same mechanic happens with Burn and Leech Seed too. Also, if a Pokemon is badly poisoned by Toxic, then the bad poison reverts to regular poison after switching out. Finally, the chance to thaw from a freeze is 10%. From personal experience, it's actually 0.1%, but I digress. Also, you need to take a turn to thaw, you can't move until the next turn. Turns as a whole work a bit differently in GSC. If a Pokemon faints, then the turn ends no matter what. If you, for example, get KO'd by poison or use explosion before your opponent's move, the opposing Pokemon's move will just not happen. A number of moves work differently in GSC when compared to other generations. Moves like Fire Blast, Thunder, and Hydro Pump have 120 base power, rather than the 110 base power they have in Gen 6 and beyond. Hidden Power is 70 base power, as opposed to the 60 base power it has in Gen 6. Some moves have little quirks in GSC. Giga Drain fails against Substitute, Encore fails if the last move used was Sleep Talk, Struggle, Transform, or a few other moves, and if you use Belly Drum under 50%, you get a +2 attack boost with no health depletion. If you miss with Jump Kick or High Jump Kick, the recoil you take is 1/8 of the damage you would have dealt to your opponent. Moves with a guaranteed secondary effect, like Thief, Dynamic Punch, and Zap Cannon, actually have a 1 in 256 chance to not trigger their secondary effect. Roar and Whirlwind both need to go second in order to work at all. If, say, a Rhydon and Zapdos use Roar on the same turn, Zapdos' Roar would fail and Rhydon's Roar would succeed, because Rhydon is naturally slower than Zapdos. Spikes work a bit differently in GSC, and this has a major impact on the game. In GSC, spikes only go up to 1 layer. You can only use spikes once. If you click it again, the move fails. GSC doesn't have 2 or 3 layers of spikes. Make no mistake though, spikes are still an integral part of every GSC metagame they are in. And now, it's time to cover the single biggest move related difference in GSC. The move Sleep Talk has one change that makes it far more viable than it is in later generations. If you run Rest and Sleep Talk on a Pokemon and pull Rest from Sleep Talk when asleep, Rest will work as it usually does. Your Pokemon is back to full health and its sleep counter is reset. This is an incredible buff to Rest plus Sleep Talk. Usually, pulling Rest from Sleep Talk is useless and does nothing but waste a turn. In GSC though, it's a full heal. That's why Rest and Sleep Talk is so prominent. And that's it for all the mechanics I wanted to talk about. Now, let's go into how you can learn GSC, find resources, and find games. On Pokemon Showdown, you can ladder GSC OU and challenge other people to GSC games. At the time of this video's release, GSC Ubers is actually on Spotlight Ladder, so you can ladder that tier as well. It's more difficult to find games for GSC Ubers, GSC NU, GSC UU, etc. because they don't have a ladder and they are less active. Your best bet for finding games in those tiers is to ask other people for games. You can ask for games in the Runes of Alph room, and depending on the tier, the UU, NU and Ubers rooms. There are also Discord servers that you can ask for games in. The biggest GSC server is the official GSC Smogon Discord, and in there, you can tag matchmaking roles for games in any tier you want. The GSC Discord is a great place if you want to learn GSC. There are good players in all tiers who can give you advice. There are also links to resources in that server. Speaking of resources, let's go over them. All of the GSC resources are located in the GSC subforum on Smogon. There are viability rankings, discussion threads, sample teams, tournament replays, etc. There's a thread near the top of the GSC forum called the GSC Forum Rules, Resource Directory, Tournament Schedules, and Hall of Fame, which has basically everything you need. There's also a tournament schedule, which shows you when the next tournaments are. The viability rankings are a helpful resource, and they tell you who is in every GSC tier. The GSC OU viability rankings are updated every year in April or May. It gives you an indication as to who is good or bad in GSC tiers. For example, Snorlax is at the top of the GSC OU viability rankings because it is the best Pokemon, and Pikachu is at the bottom because it's a bad gimmick that you will never see in a serious game. The sample teams give you an idea of what teams are like in GSC, and are good when learning the tier. There is a detailed explanation for each of the sample teams there. You should generally use sample teams when learning a new tier before building your own stuff. It's better to use stuff that's proven early on. For non-OU tiers, you want to head over to the Runes of Alph room for sample teams. In the room introduction, there is a samples button, and by clicking the GSC button, you get the teams. Finally, there is a tournament replays thread. In here, you can watch years upon years of GSC tournament games. You can see how top tier, experienced GSC players play and what teams they use. It's good to learn from the best. You can also copy teams from replays if you want. And again, the GSC Discord is a fantastic place to be in when learning anything GSC related. I would highly recommend joining it. I will leave any important resources in a pinned comment, so make sure to check that out. And that is the video. I hope you enjoyed, hope this was informative, and go out there and play competitive Gen 2. Good luck and have fun.